All right, today we're diving into a case that's been years in the making and honestly, one that could really change the whole landscape of international justice. We're talking about the historic International Criminal Court hearing for former Philippine President Rodrigo Duterte. Let's get right into it.
At its heart, what we're watching unfold is actually pretty simple, but it's also incredibly profound. After a 7-year investigation that's gone through all sorts of political twists and legal hurdles, a former head of state is finally in The Hague, facing charges. And make no mistake, this isn't just any old trial. This is a moment for the history books, for sure. Rodrigo Duterte is the first ever former head of state from the entire Asia-Pacific region to be brought before the International Criminal Court for alleged crimes against humanity. So, things officially got underway on February 23, 2026. But hold on, this isn't the full-blown trial that you might be picturing just yet. We're in a really critical pre-trial phase. So what exactly is happening inside that courtroom right now? It's something called a confirmation of charges hearing. Basically, the only job of this hearing is for a panel of judges to look at the evidence and decide if there are, and this is the legal term, substantial grounds to believe that Duterte committed these crimes. Think of it as the final gateway. If the prosecution makes it through this, the case moves on to a full trial. Okay, so let's start with what the prosecution is arguing. They're painting this really chilling picture of a systematic, state-sponsored campaign of violence, with one man, they say, at the very top, giving all the orders. You know, sometimes one sentence can just sum it all up. This line from the prosecution's opening statement really captures their entire argument. They're claiming that Duterte wasn't just some bystander, he was the architect of the whole thing. The prosecution has built their case around 3 specific counts of murder as crimes against humanity. First, they point to the killings in Davao City when Duterte was mayor. They call this the Davao model. Then, they argue he took that exact same playbook and just scaled it up to the national level, first going after high-value drug suspects, and then eventually the urban poor during his presidency. And of course, they argue he didn't do this alone. They've actually named a whole network of alleged co-perpetrators. We're talking high-ranking officials they say were absolutely essential to carrying out this common plan. People like his former police chief, Ronald Bato de la Rosa, and his longtime aide, Christopher Bongo. But, as you can imagine, the defense is telling a completely different story. Their strategy really boils down to 2 main things: reframing Duterte's infamous words and, well, questioning the real motives behind this entire trial. This right here, this is the absolute core of their defense. They claim that all of Duterte's violent, threatening language, even his public admissions to killing, wasn't a set of operational orders. No, they're framing it as just political theater, the unpalatable but ultimately harmless style of a strongman leader. So you can see the whole case could really pivot on this one single distinction. The prosecution points to his speeches and this so-called PRRD list, a list of alleged drug suspects he released to the public, and says, see, this is a hit list. The defense fires right back, saying it was just an intelligence tool, and the president's words were just bombastic language to sound tough. And then the defense drops a bombshell. They're alleging that this entire case is actually being orchestrated by the current Philippine president, Ferdinand Marcos Jr., to politically neutralize the Duterte family. They're basically arguing that the ICC is just being used as a pawn in a power struggle back home. But you know, in the middle of all this legal and political back and forth, there's another voice that has entered the courtroom. The voice of the victims of the drug war. And their testimony, it paints a really harrowing picture of loss and a desperate search for answers. Wow, that image from the victim's lawyer, Joel Bugian, the last boat the victims can board, it really says everything, doesn't it? He argued that they've tried every legal option back home and have been blocked at every turn. So the ICC, it represents their final and only hope for justice. If this doesn't work, there's nowhere else to go. And Buterian explained exactly why this is their last resort, detailing what he called a systematic erasure of evidence. Imagine getting a death certificate for a relative who was shot multiple times, and the cause of death is listed as pneumonia, or police reports, ballistics, DNA evidence, just non-existent. It makes any kind of real investigation back home totally impossible. So, okay, we've heard from the prosecution, we've heard from the defense, and we've heard the plea from the victims. Now what? The fate of this case is now in the hands of the 3 judges of the pretrial chamber. You know, it's been such a long and winding road to get to this point.
This journey really began way back when the Philippines joined the ICC in 2011. It continued through Duterte's controversial withdrawal from the court in 2019, the launch of the formal investigation in 2021, and it all culminated in his arrest and transfer to The Hague in March of 2025, which finally set the stage for this hearing.
Following the hearing, the judges have about a 60-day window to make their call, and they've got three basic options. 1, they confirm the charges, and the case is sent to a full trial. 2, they decline to confirm the charges, which would pretty much end the whole thing right there. Or 3, they could hit pause and ask the prosecution to go find more evidence. Ultimately, when you strip it all away, this entire landmark case forces us to face a really fundamental and, frankly, unsettling question that has implications for the whole world. At what point do a leader's words stop being just bluster and become the very orders that lead to thousands of deaths? That is the question now before the court, and really, it's a question for all of us to consider.